Hello, and welcome back to Reimagining Magic. This is the series where I create custom cards to reimagine the lore of MTG. Last time we went over the lore of Mirror and reimagined Urtet to be the leader of a Mirror uprising against the Phyrexians. If you haven't seen the last video, then I suggest you go check it out. In that video, Urtet's creator, Memnarch, was mentioned, and many of you wanted to see a Memnarch planeswalker since his main goal was to ascend as a planeswalker. Memnarch was originally created by Karn to watch over the plane of Argentum, but unknown to Karn, he had been corrupted by glistening oil during his creation, since Urza used the Heartstone of Xancha, a Phyrexian sleeper agent, to create Karn. After Karn gave up his Planeswalker Spark to seal a temporal rift, he was no longer protected by the spark, allowing him to be corrupted by the dormant oil within him. That glistening oil spread to Argentum, corrupting Memnarch and driving him mad. Memnarch became paranoid and driven by desire, the desire for power, the desire to surpass Karn rather than just be his successor. Memnarch's plan was to steal a dormant planeswalker spark by abducting beings from other planes, experimenting on them, and learning how to extract the spark. He used soul traps to abduct people from across the multiverse, and even trapped Karn, preventing him from intervening. His plan was to lure Glissa, Sunseeker, to his lair. Glissa was a renowned Viridian elf warrior and had a dormant planeswalker spark. Memnarch intended to extract her latent spark and ascend to a planeswalker. But when Glissa realized Memnarch's plans, Glissa threw herself and Memnarch into the rock core of Mirrodin, sacrificing herself to destroy Memnarch's physical form and stopping his plan of ascension. But what if Memnarch was successful? Having subdued Glissa and extracting her latent spark, with Karn trapped, there would be no one left to stop Memnarch. Glissa would die in the process of extraction, allowing Memnarch to artificially set the spark within himself, becoming what we would know as Memnarch Ascended. This Memnarch would be a fully realized planeswalker, an unstoppable force feared by the planes soon to come under his conquest. Memnarch had mirror drones surveilling the entirety of Mirrodin, and with the Darksteel Eye, he was granted near omniscience over his plane. This is why I think he should have an ability such as, your opponents play with their hands revealed. Whenever an opponent draws a card, put a loyalty counter on Memnarch Ascended. The second ability would be 0. Scry 2, you and target opponent both draw a card. It's kind of a neat ability. Instead of getting a normal +1 ability, you force an opponent to draw a card, and Memnarch would gain a loyalty counter from that, hence the 0 cost. His third ability would be -2, exile target card from an opponent's hand. You may cast that card for as long as it's exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. And his fourth and final ability would be -7. Each opponent exiles their hand, you may cast those cards for as long as they're exiled, and mana of any color can be spent to cast them. I think for this planeswalker, it's not as game-ending as other planeswalkers, but its ability to gain excessive loyalty counters and steal opponents' cards, I think this should be a 5-cost planeswalker, something like 3 blue, starting with 4 loyalty counters. Unfortunately, there was not enough space for me to add a line that says Memnarch Ascended can be your commander, so just pretend I added it. This planeswalker would synergize very well with wheel strategies, Nekuzar style. I also wanted to play around with an ability like Obnix list the adversary's casualty X. So with that in mind, I want to make an enchantment. We can call it Memnarch's Ascension. I think it would be a cheaper enchantment, even though its ability is pretty good. You wouldn't use this card in a normal Magic deck, so I'd say 1 blue-black. For this card's ability, it would be Planeswalker spells you control have casualty X. The copy isn't legendary and has starting loyalty X. As you cast the spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. When you do copy the spell, the copy becomes a token. After his ascension, Memnarch would eliminate all flawed biological life and convert them into machines, resembling the goals of his predecessor, Yawgmoth. To do this, he would begin invading each plane one by one. He would need an army. He would need the method to convert biological life into machines, or rather, complete them. That's right, since Memnarch was originally corrupted by the glistening oil before ascending to a planeswalker, it makes sense that it would corrupt him into a Phyrexian planeswalker, one of which more powerful than anything we've seen from the new Phyrexia sets. This Phyrexian planeswalker would be called Memnarch, Father of Machines. So, going with the theme we've established, it would make sense for this alternate planeswalker to steal creatures from your opponents. I think I'll give him just 2 abilities. The first, -1. Exile target creature, Create a token copy of that creature, except it's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. And the second, -5. Exile all creatures your opponents control. Make a copy of each of those creatures, except they are Phyrexian in addition to their other types. I think I'll give him one other ability. Whenever a Phyrexian creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a poison counter on target opponent. That's right, poison counter. As if stealing shit wasn't bad enough, now he can be turned into a win con as long as there's enough non-token creatures on the battlefield. And you slowly poison your opponents whenever you play Phyrexians. Is it broken? Definitely. Its combo ability is almost like Professor Onyx, so let's make this an expensive 7 cost Planeswalker, 7 generic, and a starting loyalty would be 5. I think this would synergize well with proliferation and flicker strategies, which Phyrexians are known for, at least in the proliferation part. I wonder what it would be like to make a deck with these as a commander. I think it would be pretty good actually. Anyway, let's get back to the video. After Memnarch is completed, what would he do with Karn? Karn, of course, had been trapped until Glissa destroyed the soul snares imprisoning him. So if Glissa was dead, Karn would still be trapped. But Memnarch's goal was never to kill Karn, it was to be equal to him, to prove that he had surpassed him. So Memnarch wouldn't kill Karn, but complete him, to make them alike. Karn would be at his side, just like he wanted. Then he would set his other plans into motion. With the help of Karn, they would invade neighboring planes, slowly completing all life and extracting latent sparks from all unrealized planeswalkers that cross their paths, creating an army of planeswalkers under their control. An army so devastating, even Teferi and the plane of Zhalfir would stand no chance against them. We'll call this planeswalker Carnage completed. Simple, yet effective. Karn and Memnarch both always had artifact-centric abilities, so we'll give Karn one. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, put an oil counter on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses life equal to the amount of oil counters on permanents. Then we can give him a +1 ability. Target creature loses all types and abilities. Put an oil counter on it. It becomes a 1/1 Phyrexian artifact creature. Its next ability would be -2. Put an artifact from your hand onto the battlefield under your control. Return it to your hand at the end of your next turn. And ability number 3, -6. Gain control of each artifact with an oil counter on it. I don't know why I'm on such a card stealing binge today, but I guess the point is to corrupt and create a Phyrexian army to then conquer your opponents with. Well, Karn would start with 3 loyalty counters, and he would cost 4 generic. Is that enough? I think so. But enough of these mad planeswalkers. You know what Wizards of the Coast missed when making Memnarch? A Darksteel Eye card. Let's make that happen. Darksteel Eye would be an artifact with indestructible, and you may look at the top of your library at any time. You may play artifacts from the top of your library. And for an ability like this, Darksteel Eye should cost at least 3 generic. But what if, instead of saying this is the actual Darksteel Eye, which is basically a surveillance room as you can see here, we say it's Memnarch's helmet that he uses to see through that Darksteel Eye. Basically what I'm saying is we make it an equipment. Maybe it gives the equipped creature Ward 2, and instead of looking at the top of your library, it has an ability that says equipped creature has. You may look at the top card of each player's library at any time, and you may cast artifact spells from the top of your library. Then we'll give it an equip cost 3, and hear me out, equip Planeswalker 2. I think it's flavorful. I mean, this whole video is about planeswalkers, right? And what's stopping a planeswalker from equipping something? This is why the equip ability isn't something that only creatures use, but more of a static ability given by the equipment, and the ability is locked behind the equipped cost. Anyway, I think it would be cool if there was a Super Voltron play strategy in the game. Honestly, Wizards of the Coast messed up on this one. As of now, I think there's only one equipment that can equip to a planeswalker, and that's Luxor, Guida's Gift, but it makes the planeswalker a creature, which is kinda lame. But I guess it does enable the Super Voltron in its own way. Not in the way I was thinking though. I also would like to have an artifact card of the device used to extract the sparks. In the lore, Memnarch used soul traps to abduct beings from across the planes, and since sparks are tied to the soul, his logic was that these soul traps could be adapted to extract the spark from their soul. So let's call this artifact Soul Harvester. This artifact would have an ability like 3 tap. Choose target planeswalker, it becomes a legendary enchantment named Extracted Spark. And another ability such as, when Soul Harvester enters the battlefield, create a colorless Planeswalker token with 1 loyalty, and this Planeswalker has all loyalty abilities of Extracted Spark. This is some kind of Mirrodin horror. You erase a Planeswalker and turn it into a hollow shell with its abilities. And since it's a legendary token, it solves the problem of having multiple Spark tokens at a time. But let's be honest, there is more than one way to break this. Soul Harvester should be an expensive artifact, although its ability already costs 3 mana. Let's make it a 4 cost on top of that, so it costs 7 mana to activate it on the turn it enters. But the ruling for this card would be pretty weird, turning a Planeswalker into an enchantment, but keeping its loyalty abilities. Pretty weird indeed. So what if we do an alternate take on this card? Instead of Soul Harvester, we call it Memnarch's Altar, which would be a 4 cost artifact with sacrifice a creature, create a Spark artifact token with 2 tap, sacrifice this artifact, create a colorless Planeswalker with 3 loyalty and -1, create a 2/2 colorless Phyrexian artifact creature token with sacrifice this creature, create a treasure token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. I thought it would be hilarious if we just kept on making shit with abilities to make more shit. Like, first you sacrifice a creature to make a Spark token, then you sacrifice the Spark token to make a Planeswalker token, then that Planeswalker makes a Phyrexian creature token, then you sacrifice that creature to make a treasure token. But why not sacrifice the Phyrexian with Memnarch's Altar to make another Spark token? It's the kind of madness you'd expect coming from Memnarch. Dude is unstable. Anyway, if I wanted to fix Memnarch's Altar, which I don't, but if I did, what I would change is the ability to sacrifice a creature. What if it had to be a non-token creature? I guess that would make sense. Or how about a legendary creature? That kind of puts some power behind this artifact. You're literally making planeswalkers after all. And I think it's meant to be used with Memnarch's ability to steal things from your opponents. So yeah, I think that works. And then instead of making the Phyrexian token sacrifice to make a treasure token, how about just not giving it abilities? I'd say that's fixed enough to make it into the final cut, and still weird and insane. What do you guys think? Did I successfully encapsulate Memnarch's Ascension? Let me know in the comments. It takes a lot of time and effort to draw art, especially because I'm not really an artist and I'm not getting paid for this while YouTube makes money off of my unpaid labor. Anyway, if you enjoyed watching this and want to see more reimagining magic videos, make sure to like and subscribe. Now you should know how to be a shitbag and create broken cards to use against your unsuspecting friends. Good luck, and you're welcome.